The other day, I had a discussion with Brian Kilmeade. And Brian Kilmeade is the co-anchor, and I'll get to your calls after I play this for you. Brian Kilmeade is the co-anchor of Fox and Friends and the host of Brian Kilmeade Show. He has a brand new book out, and the book is Sam Houston and the Alamo Avengers, a behind-the-scene look into the battle for Texas. And I want to tell you this in advance. Audio sound is not real clear. Nick had to work overtime to really clear it up so you can hear it as good as you possibly could, as best that you possibly could, all right? So he put a lot of work into clearing up because it was such a good interview, and Brian Kilmeade is such a good guy as far as fighting for what is right and standing up, and he doesn't seem to be afraid of the truth. And it was really an enjoyable conversation with him about his book and other things. So here's my interview, and again, forgive us for the sound. My producer Nick really worked hard to make it work so you can hear this interview. And so here is Brian Kilmeade. All right, folks, I have with me one of my favorite TV and radio hosts, Brian Kilmeade. And I've been on Brian radio show several times, as well as Fox and Friends. Brian Kilmeade is the co-anchor of Fox and Friends and host of the Brian Kilmeade Show. I can't believe I'm interviewing Brian finally after all these years. Brian is also the author of Sam Houston and the Alamo Avengers, a behind-the-scene look into the Battle of Texas. Brian, welcome to the show.
Jesse, I appreciate you having me on.
It's an honor to have you here, man.
I appreciate it.
You're doing a great job on Fox and Friends as well as your radio show. I wanted to first ask, I noticed that, and by the way, happy birthday. Are you able to tell us how old you are?
56.
That's an amazing age.
I hope so. We're going to find out.
You don't look 56.
Well, you know what? I use moisturizer. Maybe that's the key.
I've noticed that on Fox and Friends, they have plays you guys in social distancing. How is that difficult to do the show, being placed in different places?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no, even us, you and I could look at you and I could comment. It's real time. Can you imagine if there was a second and a half delay?
Right.
Steve's 2 seconds, you second and a half. Ainsley's like a half a second. So you really don't have any spontaneity. I mean, they're literally in your ear saying, Ainsley speaks, Steve speaks, Brian speaks. And if you have to do a follow-up question, you got to get the producer's attention, and they're not even with you, so you're kind of waiting to go off camera in a delay, trying to say, let me follow up. But I guess they're worried about safety. They want to keep the building kind of empty now.
Yeah.
You go to New York City around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there's nobody there.
I know. That's how it is here in LA. It looked like a ghost town. I was jogging the other day through my neighborhood and all that, and it's kind of sad to see businesses shut down, people not on the streets, functioning at the parks. I've never imagined seeing LA like that. I've been here since 1968, and it's hard for me to believe that we are at this point in Los Angeles or in the country, period.
Well, you got to start opening up now.
Yeah.
Look, I get it. He felt like he had no option, and maybe he didn't, but I feel as though it's really diminishing returns. You can't destroy a country while the scientists try to figure out how to solve the virus.
Right.
We have to work on the everyday people. If you own the barbershop, the salon, the liquor store, you have to figure out a way to make the customer feel safe and let the scientists do what the scientists do. And because we can't do this anymore. I mean, how many? Another 3 million on unemployment?
I know.
It's going to have 30 million people unemployed, 33 million. It's unbelievable. And they say it's going to get worse next week.
I know. I heard that. I want to get to your book, but do you think that the Democrats are going to let the people go, or will they try to hold them until the elections are over?
I mean, I'm seeing your governor. You know, he was good in the crisis, but on the reopening, he's been erratic.
Yeah.
Now you have mayors say, "We'll shut this down forever. I don't see us playing baseball until next year." What are you talking about? Is that the American attitude? I quit?
Yeah.
No, work it out. My thing is, there's pressure on your governor. There's pressure on the mayor because most people aren't into politics like we're into it. They sit there and say, "Yeah, I guess I have a Democratic governor. Why do I not have a business? Why is there not a Starbucks in my neighborhood? Why did I just get fired?"
Yeah.
And then you're making it worse because I have no place to apply for a job because you allowed all these industries to step down. I mean, look at New Jersey. He's taking another 30 days. That's good for him. He's got $50 million in the bank.
Yeah.
But what about everybody that doesn't? How dare he? I can't go to Dick's Sporting Goods, but I go to a liquor store. How does that make sense? Why should we take that?
And not only can you go to a liquor store, but you can go to the pot house. Right down the road from my office is a store where they sell pot. And those stores are still open. And people are still going there, no problem. And a lot of people don't wear masks when they go to these different stores, at least for the pot. And I'm wondering, how are they able to keep those things open but close down everything else that's important?
Yeah, I don't get it. Maybe they're going to use it for medical use, but pharmacy, I mean, we're going to look back and say, what were you doing? Why can't I go to a car wash? If you want a car wash, it's not like you have a lot of money.
Yeah.
You're taking a risk. You hire some people. They're working hard. You don't have to touch a customer. Come on. You go up to that car wash and say, "Hey, guys, this is what I need for you to stand up. Can you do it?" Yeah, absolutely, I can. Well, so why destroy this person's life for no reason?
I know.
So I think you can't be lazy. Don't just sit in the governor's mansion and say, "I'm looking out for your welfare." Go in there to Main Street. See what it takes to open up the dollar store. See what it takes to open up the clothing store. See what it takes to be able to sit down in a restaurant. It's the current status quo is not okay.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I don't know if you know that the lady in Texas that refused to obey the judge's order, she opened her salon anyway. Well, they arrested her, as you know, and the Supreme Court of Texas overturned that, and she's now free. So my question is it unconstitutional what they're doing to we the people?
I'm pretty sure it wouldn't withstand a challenge, although governor's allowed to have executive orders, right? So they can do that, but people can protest. And the legislature can try to overturn, like Michigan, and then she could say, "No, I'm doubling down."
Yeah.
I mean, that woman in Michigan, if she thinks she's winning people over, it's scary. If people are won over by the way she's run that state, I'm worried about their value system.
Yeah.
I think what she's doing now is making sure that state stays in the president's column, but I don't get I don't get what she's thinking. She is now doubling, tripling down, ruining lives by the day.
Yeah, that's amazing. That was Michigan, not Texas, right?
No, Michigan, Texas, they may pass that rule that the executive orders cannot result in jail time. Executive orders cannot result in jail
I got
time.
you.
With Governor Abbott today.
Yeah.
So I think that's a smart move.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad that he had to put that in.
It sure is, man. It really is. I want to get to your book a little bit here. I noticed that over the years that you seem to be really interested in history. And how did you become that way?
You know, everyone's interested in different things. I know people that love engines.
Right.
I know people that, love, like, live and die with different sports, the NASCAR.
Right.
Or they live and die with football. I love sports. I used to work in it, but I never lived and died with it unless I was in the game.
Yeah.
So with history, I always had a passion for it. I had great teachers. And in my neighborhood, they told me about George Washington, this group of spies that nobody knows about. It was top secret till 1930. And then in comes the Depression and the war. No one focused on this great discovery. So I looked at that for like 20 years. Thought it was like national treasure, but only a true story. And then they told me, if you publish that story, it's a better chance of being a movie, even if you sell 2 books.
Yeah.
Great. So he did well. And then I realized I could maybe do a formula. With Thomas Jefferson, the Tripoli Pirates, Andrew Jackson, Miracle of New Orleans, and now Sam Houston, the Alamo Avengers. I don't think there's anything more important than learning about our past.
Yeah.
Because the president becomes president and can't answer the question, are you an exceptional nation? And maybe some American citizens couldn't. I just thought, man, that's my motivation. I want people to understand we're not perfect, but at the core, we're exceptional.
Did you study history in college?
Minor in political science. That's about as far as I got.
Yeah.
I just had a chance to study it.
I like history as far as going and looking at history, especially in America, or hearing about it. But when I was in high school, I did not like reading about it. But your books have made it so simple and so real. It's like real life. It's really easy to read your books about history. So I appreciate that about your writing.
Thanks, because what I do is I try to go out there. I got that Fox Nation series now.
Yes.
And I go out there, and first thing I do is go see it, go talk to all the experts. They don't get paid a ton of money to keep these stories alive. I'm amazed by them. They're always selfless. And I'm able to read about a story, then go see it, because it's in America. And then I'm able to kind of press the way I would a news story and just say, what don't people know about this story?
Yeah.
It hasn't been brought out yet. What documents has not many people seen? So I try to bring a different shade
Yeah.
to everything and make sure it's accurate. That's the main thing. I give all my experts, I give them the manuscript. I go, tell me if there's anything here that you want to challenge. So I know at a Fox guy, the first thing they want to do is challenge the facts because they want to get you. And I feel like the books are ready for that challenge.
Well, you're doing an amazing job. In your book, you detail Abraham Lincoln and how he tried to stop Texas from leaving the Union at the start of the Civil War. Tell us a bit about that.
So when you do these books, as you know, you try to add something to the paperback. So paperback comes out on Tuesday, and I said, I know exactly what I want to do. We start this book in the War of 1812 with Sam Houston getting injured and almost killed. We end the book in the winning the Texas Revolution. But we know what happens after. After the Mexican War, gradually, slowly, the country gets divided. And guess who's governor of Texas? He knows, he's almost like Nostradamus. He knew we were heading towards a slave state, free state war. And he knew how to get out of it. He ran for president, but kind of dropped out. Lincoln wins. And he said, listen, I'm your governor. Stay out of this war. The Confederacy will lose, and hundreds of thousands of people will die. So they said, no, we're in. He goes, you got to stay out. They both voted him down, so he quit. Lincoln hears about it, and Lincoln writes him a letter and says, Sam, I heard what you're trying to do. I'll give you 50,000 troops. I'll provide security. Keep Texas out of this war. And he's thought about it for 2 days. And he said, threw the letters into the fire and said, I'm too old a man. If I was younger, I would do it. I don't want to find myself killing other Texans.
Yeah.
So he went to his ranch. His son went out and fought. And he got to see a lot of the carnage of the Civil War, but didn't see how it ended. He passed away before it ended.
Amazing. It's very, very interesting. I believe that if we made your books mandatory reading in high school, that the people who want to take away the statues and get rid of history would have a change of heart about it, because you make it so real that I think that most people would be able to relate to it. The president, the Great White Hope, Donald Trump, I call Donald Trump the Great White Hope. Did you know that?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, the Great White Hope. Recently compared himself to Abraham Lincoln, referred to the hate that he received. Do you see any comparison?
No. The whole slavery thing is so abhorrent in our past. Diminish how bad that was, how the smartest people in the world could somehow rationalize that behavior. And then you read Booker T. Washington and Frederick Douglass, and it tells exactly their experience. So it's a bridge too far for me. And I hope we're not going to end up with that divide. But he is, there was a half a country who really wanted him dead. And then the more they had Lincoln, the more they realized this is our best chance of healing and not getting, and no revenge being sought from the North on the South ultimately. And when he died, I think the South was more upset than the North, because they realized Lincoln had this peaceful quality about him. But as things come out about Mueller, as things come out about the Ukraine, as things come out about the pandemic, the more you wonder how much more effective he would have been had people not been so dug in to make sure he failed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's mind-blowing, man. I consider the country fortunate to have the president right now that we have. I don't know of any other man in this country that I would want to see in control and would do as well as this president is doing. And the attacks on him is mind-blowing to me. But in one way, it's good because we, the people, can see how he's handling it And I think he's doing an amazing job in trying to make America great again, keeping it great, putting the people first, and still dealing with the hatred that is coming after him.
Right. I mean, he seems kind of serene this week. He just said, I think one of the quotes is I realize there's nothing I can do that will ever please the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Some days he realizes it, other days he wants to take you out. So, that's what these press conferences are becoming. They're becoming sparring sessions.
Yeah.
And for the President of the United States, I wouldn't put my chin out.
Yeah.
I would just say, I say to Mr. President, make yourself a little bit harder to hit.
Yeah.
Make it work for it. And Kayleigh McEnany's doing a great job in tandem with him and communicating. And I think she's the best so far by a mile. And I do think the president will be judged how he handles the pandemic. Not so much who wins Politico, but when you walk the streets of Los Angeles, not that he could ever win California.
Right.
Are people's lives getting back? Is he fighting for the same thing they are? Do people getting the supplies they need? Or is the country standing up as quick as possible? Is providing the right support? Because I think everything else, the tax cut on down, it's not even going to come into play when you go to that ballot box in November. Do you agree?
I agree. Absolutely. I know we're running out of time. You're so busy. I want to ask, is it true that the Civil War was over slavery?
Yes. I think that fundamentally, even though the war started, and if you asked a Union soldier, are you fighting to free African Americans? They would say, no, I'm fighting to keep the Union together. If you say in the Confederacy, they say, well, I'm fighting for states' rights, but they were fighting to preserve slavery. There's no question, A to Z. And to me, the more I study it, and it leads to my next book, really, shows what a good interview you are. The more I study it, when he came out, people would say, man, this guy doesn't care about the slaves. He's not even bringing it up. Where's the Emancipation Proclamation? Where's it? Why doesn't he just put the African Americans in uniform? Why doesn't he put the blacks in uniform and let them fight? Because he knew America wasn't ready yet. He knew if he brought that up, he might have had the North walk down. Because you can stop slavery, but you can't stop racism.
Right.
And so what he had to do is finesse it. And when the time is right, he had to say now. And he had to push back, much to the chagrin of and I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Frederick Douglass, he said, what's this guy waiting for? What a letdown. I had so much hope. But he basically, when they met, he said, listen, Frederick, they weren't ready. Now they're ready. Get it on, help me recruit. He goes, you got it. They form the 54th. They get other African Americans. They start luring the South over. And I think the guy who did more damage to our country than anybody else is John Wilkes Booth. Because if you took Lincoln, teamed him with Grant and Douglas, they would have been our best shot of making the South understand there were new rules. We wouldn't have needed the 1960s if Lincoln had survived the 1860s. I just believe they knew what it took. They were going to flood in teachers. They were going to flood in security. They were going to make sure those who lost weren't going to be punished with prison, but were going to be forced to understand that these slaves now can vote. They deserve rights. They deserve to make a living, and we're going to watch out for them. It wouldn't have been easy, but man, it's so heart-wrenching to see what happened in the South to the black community when we converted from the slave culture to the free culture.
Yeah.
It didn't take root because we had a drunk racist as president in Andrew Johnson.
Amazing. Brian, knowing what you know, how do you feel about the groups and what would you say to them in Texas who want to remove Sam Houston and other American figures from, just wipe them out? What do you say to those folks?
I mean, you have a better answer to me. One thing, Sam Houston, Stephen F. Austin, yeah, they had slaves, but they had a handful of slaves. They were all part of the culture, sadly, but it was part of it.
Yeah.
You look back to 2008. If you said, and told Barack Obama that same-sex marriage will work, he said absolutely not. Same-sex marriage is marriage between a man and a woman. And if you told him that in 2012, you said marriage between a man and a woman in 2012, you looked at it as intolerant and homophobe.
Yeah.
So things change. It's part of society. And you can't put our values and mores back there. Now, if I'm black and I knew there was a general in my town square that killed people in order to make sure my ancestors were enslaved, I could understand it. Even though Charles Barkley said I walked by those statues, I never thought about any of it. And if there were plaques that could put on there that these Confederates fought and they were wrong, but this is what they did. Or there's a Confederate museum. I went and did one of my Fox Nation features was Fort Sumter. And as you look over Fort Sumter where the cannons were bombing it, you look and see a Confederate statue over my right shoulder and plaques on the fence. Salute the 54th Infantry, which was All Blacks, Massachusetts, right?
Right.
And as I'm with Lindsey Graham, he said, they're all Americans. He points to the statue and goes, they were wrong. He points to the plaque and goes, they were right. So I'm not looking to run from the history.
Right.
But I'm looking to define it. If there was a plaque on that statue that said, fought for the Confederacy to preserve slavery in his culture and who he was, he might have been a great person. But I understand the African American community, and you tell me I'm wrong. I can understand if you trace back to slaves and men fought to keep your ancestors in slavery, how that could be offensive, yes. However, I don't want to take down Jefferson's statue because he had slaves, or Teddy Roosevelt because he had some racist statements. Nobody could live Woodrow Wilson because he had some racist tendencies. No one can live up to perfection. But when you have an army formed to preserve a slave culture, I could understand that. And I think I was talking to Douglas Brinkley about it too. You can love America and also understand and preserve our history when it comes to the Confederacy. I could see there being an audible there. Do you?
I don't at all. And I grew up I was born and raised on a plantation down in Alabama. My great-grandparents and my grandparents and my parents, they all grew up, and I grew up on the plantation. I have family members who owned land during that time. They bought land. I have one aunt, she and her husband had 15 or 16 children during that time. They bought their own land. All 15 of the kids graduated from colleges, and they're now around the country doing amazing jobs. I have friends who had the same, grew up in the same manner. I grew up having to work in the cotton fields and under the Jim Crow laws, but I never, ever, ever heard my grandparents or my parents or great-grandparents talk about history in that way. They seem to have had an appreciation for it. It brought out the best in them. They knew that it was good and evil in all races of people. They taught us to treat people the way we would like to be treated. All this animosity and this hatred for the statues and the founders and the soldiers wasn't there at that time. That only came about when the Civil Rights Movement started and they destroyed the family and the blacks were being told to hate. It's a blame and all that. But when we have families, I've been taught to work from day one, Brian. I have never known not to work. All of my brothers and sisters bought their own home. They have families. We were not taught this way. We grew up under the Jim Crow law on a plantation, and my great-grandfather was killed in his bed by some Klansmen, some white men from another plantation. They had fired some black guy, and he came over to went over to my grandfather's plantation. My great-grandfather was running at the time, and he hired this black guy, and they told him, the white guys from the other plantation said, you cannot hire this guy. He said, yes, I am. I can do what I want. So he hired the guy. They came one night to kill my great-grandfather. He had a gun under his bed, so he was able to run them off. They came again at a later time, and they was able to kill him because his wife removed the gun from under the bed, and he didn't know it, so they was able to kill him. But even through all of that, we were still taught America is the place to be. We would never thought of ourselves as non-Americans. It was just raised up that way. And so I know about the white fountains and black water fountains, but we were still told it was battle between good and evil, right and wrong. I don't understand, well, I do understand that they're being brainwashed, but the way that the blacks are acting about the Confederacy and all that is absolutely wrong. They've been miseducated, and they have been used for personal gain. It's unfortunate, because if they heard the history in the way that you write about it and talk about it, or the way that I see it, black Americans would appreciate Americans today in the same way we did. Matter of fact, they would have more appreciation because America is better as a result of what we have gone through. But they can't appreciate it because they've been brainwashed and they're being dumbed down.
Well, it's how you interpret interpreted. For example, during his time, Booker T. Washington was born a slave,
Right.
being freed by the soldiers. Then he goes up to the north, works in a coal mine, finds a way to educate himself, realized education is going to be the key to life.
Yeah.
He ends up finding his own college, Tuskegee, and he describes all the racist people like, you're never going to be here, but then there was always be one good person who would help him out.
Yeah.
And then people see the Tuskegee school, they learn to read and write and to be skilled with their hands. And when people saw, they would just drop off a wagon in the middle of the town. Goes, I'm giving this to the town. They made their own bricks for the town. They made the best bricks around. They go to kill them. After a while, the racists dropped away, and people just started saying, I like these students.
Yeah.
They're good guys. Yeah, their parents might have been racist, but as they see this generation come up, they go, okay, little by little, just over time, wore him out. He would go into New York City, and he'd go in there trying to raise money for his school. He'd get his door slammed on him 6 times. The 7th time might be Andrew Carnegie, who would say, I heard about what you do, and here's a big check. He wouldn't think about the 5 racists that slammed the door. He would think about the 6th that said, I want to help you out. So that has to be the mindset. But I do understand that Nancy Pelosi's dad in Baltimore put a statue in 1948 of a Confederate soldier and was there to Robert E. Lee, in fact, was there. They said to bring back American history. A lot of people interpret that as send a message to blacks, know your place.
Yeah.
So it depends on how you interpret it. I'm not saying it should stop you, but I wouldn't necessarily want to salute somebody that thought so little of my ancestors.
I grew up about an hour away from Tuskegee Institute, and every summer we would spend at least 2 weeks living on campus there, learning about Booker T. Washington and the school. And Booker T. is one of my major heroes. I have so much respect for him because he taught the people not to hate but to love. And he thought that black Americans should not move to the north but stay in the South, and that whites and blacks should work together because the blacks knew how to farm. They knew how to how to work. It didn't work out quite that well because a lot of blacks ran to the South. But I guarantee you, had they followed the instructions of Booker T. Washington and stayed in the South, continued to buy land, farm for themselves, and do right, America would be closer today rather than so divided. And I do want to add, Brian, that word racism is made up. It was made up as a result of the Civil Rights Movement. When I was growing up, there was no such word as racism. It was either good or evil, right or wrong. And there were good people and white people and bad people and white people, good people and black folks and bad people amongst black people. So the word racism is made up. That's a word to use to manipulate and divide. It's a made-up word. It's not the real deal. It's either good or evil, right or wrong. And my last question, well, I had 2 short ones, but I want to quickly ask you, there are millennials today that don't see the importance of American history and the Constitution. To me, that's awful. How can we change that?
You just got to put it back in the schools. No one's born that way. I know there's going to be a test on that in 4th grade. The 4th grader's going to learn it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, putting on movies to make America look good. China goes out of their way to change movies to make sure we look bad in their eyes and they look good.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we don't need propaganda here. We would just like the truth.
Yes.
And I just think that when people, it's amazing to me, for example, with this whole Chinese virus.
Yeah.
People just want to blame Trump on a response.
Yeah.
That China started it. They're like, you're just trying to distract. No. We're on the same team. This virus hurt your country and my country. We're the same country. This should not even be an issue. What do you mean China's not responsible? What do you mean distraction? What do you mean the fact is we don't know where this came from. We need to find out. So that's part of the reason. It's like it's one constitution, it's one history, and then if you want to dive into it and bring certain parts out, if you have a different perspective, that's welcome. But the fundamentals got to be taught in school, and I just don't know why people have backed away from history. It's the most universal thing we can do.
Yeah. Well, they seem to want to blame the president more so than China today, and I believe they're doing it because they're trying to win back the White House. So anything they can put on the Great White Hope, they're trying to do it. 2 quick questions. Besides the physical part, what is a man?
What is a man?
What is a man?
A man is strength, it's compassion, it's determination, and kindness.
And what is love? What is love?
That's a good one. It's caring about somebody more than yourself.
Caring about someone more than yourself. Brian, an amazing book. You're an amazing man. I really appreciate you, man. Tell the folks how to get your book, Sam Houston and the Alamo Avengers.
Yeah, I mean, it's time in which you can't go to a bookstore. Sorry. If you go to Kilmeade.com, you can order it there. It goes to my local bookstore, and they'll be able to ship it out. And I can also customize it for you if you guys want to do it. And it's a paperback, bendable and cheaper, and it's got new information.
Well, amazing, man. I really wish you well with this one as well. And keep doing what you're doing, man. You're doing an amazing job. I know a lot of people who have the utmost respect for you. When I told them that I was having you on my show, they couldn't believe it. They were jumping for joy. So thank you for coming on.
Even in Los Angeles, I can't believe it.
Oh, yeah. You're loved in Los Angeles, Brian, and we appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for coming on.
You got it, man.
All right. Okay. Amazing. So I appreciate your patience with the mic situation there. It was an amazing interview. I have gone on Brian's radio and TV show several times, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to him on my show. Amazing. So check out his book. All right? I think you'll like it. Very interesting history. So check it out. I think you'll like it. Amazing. And don't forget to like, follow, tweet, subscribe, and share the Jesse Lee Peterson radio show, folks. We really appreciate it. We are at war. It is a spiritual battle for the soul of America. And it's going to take all of us to do it.